Fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. On 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. David North Martino is back.
I am back, and you're using my full name again.
Well, yeah, you know, after seeing you with all, David's got wood. We saw that video.
He's talking about the wooden dummy.
Yeah,
well,
still,
yeah.
you're doing that martial arts karate stuff. That was pretty scary.
Are you frightened?
Behave myself.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to behave myself. I might get my ass kicked there. This was terrible.
I know, right?
I didn't realize I got such an animal as a terrorist.
Yeah.
But I tell you,
That's
Boston must be scared.
Oh, yeah.
So, one of your bands, hey, Motley Crue, hey, they're suing each other. You see that? Mick Mars is suing the band?
I did see that. I didn't really look too deeply into it. I have a feeling this is a publicity stunt.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Because there's also something going on with Kiss and Ace Frehley too. So I don't know. I think they're trying to get some free advertising.
You know, all these metal bands in their makeup, they're all suing each other. There's that White Snake too is into two bands now, and then there's not White Snake. No, what's that other one? The one that did Great White, was it?
Great White. Yeah. Well, they've been separated for a while.
But there's I'm seeing all these people coming up fighting, and like you said, Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley, and I'm thinking, it's becoming like Housewives of the heavy metal bands. Like they all wear makeup and spandex, and they're all fighting just like that, and they all have money.
Yeah, you could do a TV show on that.
Let's get on that.
Yeah,
reality show.
Yeah, I would do it.
Kind of horrific.
Produce it.
Yeah, of course you would. But,
of course.
But you could. They'd all be scared of you. You walk in the room, it's like,
that's right.
It's like karate guy coming in. They're like, oh, behave. But anyway. So now speaking of bad makeup and scary things, we've got an author who's written a book that looks very scary. And now the book's called The Night Belongs to Us and Other Stories. And the author is our guest, Jess Landry. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Jess, what made you decide to write this book? Like, how did you get into doing this book? I noticed with the cover, it kind of looked like the lead singer of Motley Crue, so I was thinking maybe it was something to do with that. But
I was going to say, hopefully you don't think my makeup's bad, but I have been writing for a while, a very long time, since I was little, all throughout school, and then kind of took a break when I was older to, do the adult thing of not writing and get a real job and all that fun stuff. And kind of throughout the past few years, I've dabbled back into it. I shouldn't say dabbled, I do it professionally. And, kind of through COVID and everything, it kind of ended up being a bit of a blessing in disguise where I was able to quit the day job and get into writing full time. So I do that now somehow, some way.
But why dark? This is a darker collection, right? This is a darker story set. So what happened to you as a child?
What didn't happen to me as a child? I don't know. I've just always kind of been into the weird stuff. I was thinking before we jumped on here about like my own origin story, my villain origin story. And I remembered that when I was in kindergarten, we had to make up a book, make up our own story. And mine was about a dog who goes trick-or-treating. So I've always kind of like, for some reason, gravitated towards the weird and the dark and the creepy. personally don't think I'm weird and dark and creepy, but maybe I am. I don't know. Public perception is everything. But yeah, it's stuff that I like to watch. I like to listen to music that's weird and dark and creepy, and I like to write stuff that's weird and dark and creepy.
Well, I'm wondering how did you find the horror writing community? I know way back for me, I found Shock Lines, which was a message board and a bookstore basically online. But I was just wondering how you came across all the people.
Yeah, for me, I when I started to take writing a little bit more seriously, maybe about 10 years ago or so, I did some Googling and I found the Horror Writers Association, and I joined up with them, and I found them to be really welcoming and just really nurturing to new people. Like, they have a really great mentorship program that I went through.
Right.
And they have opportunities for you to like volunteer and help out and stuff. So I did a lot of that. And through that, I met a lot of interesting people online. And just it kind of grew from there. And I found a lot of, camaraderie in them, because there's so many like-minded people in that community. And, not just people who are in the Horror Writers Association, but there are people just generally online who end up finding you after you kind of start your writing journey, who are in the same boat and who kind of want to do the same thing. And so there's this sort of like online kinship that ended up being formed just through many like-minded people. It's a really nice thing out there.
Right, absolutely.
Or can be anyway.
Well, I have to wonder here. Now, you've got different stories in here. This is a series of small stories, right? Short stories.
Yeah.
Now, and I see one of them, you got the daughter and mother escaping from Nazi Germany, and they get on the Hindenburg.
Yeah.
Of course, and that blows up.
Of course. Spoiler. Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, if you know history. So are you keeping history in these stories realistic? Like, you're following the real history, but you're just putting your characters into it? Or do you actually change history?
Yeah. For that one in particular, that story is called Mutter. That was, one of my first ones that people kind of started paying attention to, which was really nice. It was commissioned for an anthology called Fantastic Tales of Terror that was edited by Eugene Johnson. And so the whole theme of that anthology was taking real life situations and blending them with the fantastical and all that fun stuff. So when I set out to write that one, I was like, well, what's something that I could take that hasn't really been covered that much and that I could spin in a different way? And so I'm not going to spoil the big surprise after the Hindenburg explosion, but there's another twist that happens after that ties into some cryptid mythology that a lot of people responded nicely to. And that story actually won me the Stoker Award in 2019? 2018, wow. 2019? Sometime back then. But yeah, it's been great. Since then, it's one of those stories that people just responded really well to. And I still get some nice comments about it today, which is always reassuring.
How was that for you when you get a Stoker Award? I haven't won one of those, but I won a Stoker Award. and it got a lot of attention. But I'm just wondering on this award, does it kind of put pressure on you, or how does that feel? Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the ceremony because it was still kind of like weird COVID times, and I have a little one, so it's hard to get away. But just watching it at home online, convinced that I wasn't gonna win, because you never think that you will, especially up against, there was some tough competition, I'm pretty sure. But then winning and just being in this surreal state of, what? Did they read the right name? Like a whole Marissa Tomei thing, like, no, that was a mistake. It must be. But afterwards, you have people reaching out to you, and, sometimes other opportunities come from it. And it's been a really positive projection since then, in terms of writing. You kind of you feel the fire under my ass a bit too, to like really hunker down and take things a bit more seriously because people are paying attention. And so, yeah, since then, I've had a lot of opportunities, which I'm incredibly grateful for and thankful for, and things have been going well, which is always nice. Yeah, it's good to get the attention as long as you're ready for it and you can kind of work with it, because, take advantage of it while it's there, because, someone else. I was just talking to Dacker Stoker actually on messaging him just the other day because he did a segment for Howard Stern show.
Oh, nice.
Meeting one of his favorite fans. And,
Cool.
but I had I had no idea there's people that want to drink his blood and all that stuff.
Oh, that's a little, okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
whatever your thing is, I mean.
there's these real kind of crazy fans, and they're like, they just live for Bram Stoker, and because he's the living relative, they want to have his blood. They want to do, and it's just like, I'm thinking, holy cow, it's like, why did you do that? And it's like, well, he did it, but I just think, I don't know if I would do that myself.
Yeah, I'm not at the blood drinking level yet. Maybe one day, fingers crossed. But, whatever floats people's boats.
Yeah,
who are we to judge,
Just don't tell, just don't tell them where you live. That's all.
Yeah,
I always give them
exactly.
Dave's address, when I'm, and they show up at his place, and he's got kung fu, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you were talking about his karate skills earlier.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah. He can handle himself.
Not sure it works against vampires, but, it's okay.
No.
You never know.
Well,
Vamp fu.
Vamp fu.
That's the new one.
I like it.
So when all of these stories here, have you taken, not only, because we just talked about the Nazi Germany and Hindenburg, but on all your short stories, do you take real life events and throw characters into it, or are they just all made up? Like, how do you create your stories?
Yeah, I think, there's a good mix of everything in here. I throw a lot of my own relationships. Oh gosh, no, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. No.
Give us names. Yeah.
Names and addresses.
Yeah. We'll get them on the line.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like writing from experience helps add a bit of a reality to things, a bit of a more of a truth to everything. And so, I take from my troubled youth and I kind of expunge it upon the pages, and I kind of live my therapy through there instead of paying someone to tell me that I'm...
How dare you!
It's fine. I do it this way instead. It's much better. And I can work through it at my own pace, which is nice. But yeah, there's a lot of women in my stories, and a lot of mother-daughter relationships that are, not in tip-top shape. Obviously coming from real life. We won't go into full detail there, but yeah, there's a lot to unpack. Like anybody, I'm sure, we all have issues with our parents in some way, shape, or form. Everybody could write the book on it, I feel like. And me now having my own daughter, I'm like, oh God, what am I doing to her right now? What is she going to write about when she can actually write something? Because she's only 6. But it's like, yeah, how am I messing her up in the way that my own mom messed me up? Looking forward to it.
That's great. Well, you mentioned you were commissioned to write a story for a magazine. Oh no, it was actually an anthology. Now, I was just wondering, do you find it easy when you get an invite from an editor to come up with a story? Or I'm just asking because even with some open calls, I look and I'm like, I don't have any ideas. So,
For sure.
And it takes me, like a month.
Real, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I hear you on that. I find it easier because then it's like literally spoon fed to you, like, here, write about this. And you're like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And sometimes, sometimes it doesn't work out. Like I have one story in here called, I Will Find You Even in the Dark. That was nominated for a Stoker as well a couple of years ago. And, it was originally commissioned by a magazine, and I wrote it all up. And I was all happy with how it came out. It was super good. And then they read it and they were like, no, that's too dark.
That's how it always happens.
What? Yeah.
When you like it, and you think, this is a great story, they don't want it. They only want it when you write it and you're like, I don't know if this is very good. And then you send it in and it gets taken right away.
Yeah, that's the laws of the universe. So yeah, the message here is don't be proud of anything that you write, and then send it out into the world and people will love it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's where I was like, oh, well, now what do I do? But then luckily, Dim Shores picked it up for their anthology, Dim Shores Presents Volume 1. And yeah, I had some success with it there too. So everything, everything works out in its own mysterious way, I guess you could say.
One of the things I noticed in your in the promo for this book, it talks about how you blur the lines between genres. So what does that mean for someone that what are you doing to blur the lines? I mean, what are they getting out of the story is what I'm trying to say.
I hope they're getting a lot. But in terms of blurring stuff, horror is obviously my main bag of tricks, but within genre, there's a lot of sci-fi. There's some kind of Greek mythology as well in there. There's a lot of there's action horror and there's quiet horror. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's really a mixed bag of horror. But there's so many, subgenres within the genre, right? That it's it's fun to kind of untangle some things and explore them in different ways and kind of revisit them in ways that people might not expect. And it's just a fun thing for me anyway, to kind of subvert expectations on a few things, especially having all my stories mainly about women. There's obviously, we've come a long way. We've come a long way in the genre. Let's just say that. And, I like to not have the heroines be so, heroine-y in a way.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Heroine-y, that's a word, right?
Heroine-y, yeah, that's,
I'm a writer, not a speaker, so.
Heroine-y. Your characters, where do they come from? What are you dreaming them up, or do you run into people that you sort of pick up some sort of thing from them, or do you see people on TV? How does this happen for you?
It's a lot of different things. There's for sure a lot of myself in some of these ladies. There's also, it's a bunch of different things really. I always try to think about this question or questions like this about where do ideas come from? Where do characters come from? And the honest answer is that I don't know.
Maybe it's from heroin.
Maybe it is. Maybe I'm a little heroine-y right now, but no, it's one of those things that it just kind of comes, and when it comes, I just start writing, and I usually, this is going to sound terrible, I don't think too hard right at the first draft stage anyway. I just kind of go with the flow, and whatever spills out is what spills out. It's usually a pile of word vomit, but then we edit it to make it into something a bit more shiny and a little less smelly, and it usually comes out as something somewhat legible anyways, I hope. But yeah, I honestly it's a little bit of me. It's a little bit of, the relationships I have in my life right now. Maybe some friends have ended up in here, and they'll never know because I want to keep them as friends. But yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
When you're creating these characters, do you have an inner monologue? Can you hear the characters? I'm just trying to find out if you're hearing voices, actually. I know I am. But can you, because not everybody has an inner monologue. And I'm just wondering, is that how you create dialogue, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, for me, I can hear, I hear voices. I hear voices right now. Who are these men that are talking to me? But no, I hear voices. I see, I can see, scenes and images really clearly. I have a very randomly visual mind. And it's kind of weird too. I'll let you in on a little weird thing that I actually have, this condition called hypnagogic hallucinations. So at nighttime, when I'm in between, being asleep and being awake, the brain is still kind of active. I can see things, and sometimes it's nice things. The past little bit, I've been seeing the ocean floor on my ceiling. So I'll see turtles swimming by all merrily. It's like Finding Nemo on my ceiling, basically. But other times I'll see shadow people, or when I was younger, I used to see a giant spider at the corner of my room, just kind of hanging out. And then occasionally I have auditory hallucinations as well. So sometimes I'll hear music, and it's very bizarre. So
it's all real.
Sometimes it's all, oh no. Who are these people that have been watching me sleep, and why is there an ocean on my ceiling?
Exactly. They don't allow you to drive, do they?
They do, but don't tell them.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's a very weird thing, and I just recently found out that a lot of my aunts have the same thing as well. So I guess it's a hereditary thing that's been running in the family for a while, and they were all creeped out about it. But I'm like, yeah, give me more shadow people, give me more creepy things staring at me while I'm trying to sleep.
And your husband's alive.
He's alive. He one time I like slapped him while I was sleeping, and he didn't leave me then, so he's not going to leave me now.
Well, I was thinking more like you woke up and he's gone, and all that was in the side of the bed was a shovel and some dirty shoes. I mean,
the night is young. Things can happen.
Well, yeah. We'll call him on the other line. We'll see if he's still there. I know he's not.
He's at work, I swear.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he's down in the basement. If you set out to scare people, is that sort of what you do when you're putting together a story? Are you thinking about your reader?
No, sorry.
Oh no,
sorry, reader. No, I just honestly I write stuff that I like, stuff that interests me, stuff that I feel like I have to get out there. For me, for reading and for watching movies and stuff, I don't get scared very often. War movies scare me, of all things. I don't like watching war movies, but give me, all the blood and guts and everything, and I'll just, be knitting as I'm watching it, enjoying myself, sipping a tea, doing what I do best. And so it's kind of interesting to me, though, to see people that do get really scared by different things. I have one of my stepsisters is the biggest chicken in the world. And so I somehow convinced her one year to go to a haunted maze around here. And while we were going through, I kept saying her name, like, it's okay, Carly, like, you'll be okay, Carly. And the scare actors heard me saying her name, so they picked it up and started taunting her as we were going through the maze. And it basically traumatized her for life, and now she won't even talk about it. So I enjoy stuff like that. I enjoy seeing people being scared. I'm hopeful that, people are scared at what I'm writing and what I'm putting out, but if they're not, that's cool too.
Yeah. Well, that's, she's probably in an insane asylum right now.
She is. Yes, she is.
But well, do you kill off people you don't like? Or do you put them in bad situations? Like, even if you don't really know them that well, or you know what I mean, just people,
Mm-hmm.
Do you draw from real people at times? So I wonder if you take someone that's really evil or you don't like or you think is terrible and incorporate them in one of the, let's say, victims of your books.
I mean, for me personally, I try to surround myself with people that I do like, so that way I don't have to kill anybody, both fictionally and not. But, there's obviously a lot going on in the world right now with some pretty terrible people, leading people around, and that definitely seeps into things for sure. So, you find yourself maybe even subconsciously writing those types of people as your villains, and then, feeling a little good about yourself when you do give it to them at the end. I think there's some nice poetic justice in that for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, in a way, you've got more control. If you're writing nonfiction and a true story, you're sort of stuck with, sometimes the bad guy gets away.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're controlling it and it's fictional, you can sort of give it to them.
Yeah. It's always nice.
So where do you draw from? Like, what is your horror favorites, or what do you read? Maybe you do other things other than horror.
Horror is everything. I for my office anyway, you can't see it. Nobody can see it right now except for me, but it's very messy. But I have a lot of just paintings and posters and stuff that inspire me. I have a Hellraiser poster on the wall. I have a Thing poster on the wall. Those are two of my favorite movies. I love American Werewolf in London too. That's another one of my faves. And I just have spooky art. I have, bats and bloody hands, and I have an original Clive Barker painting hanging up on the wall. That's like my prized possession that I look to often for inspiration. I'm a big fan of his as well. I have all his stuff. I've read all his books, and I like to
any dead bodies or anything?
Not in my office, but
We won't tell
The
anyone.
basement is a different story. It's fine. You should see my basement. It looks like a morgue. There's probably a few bodies hidden in the walls from the previous owners, not from me. I swear.
Well, speaking of Clive Barker, are you more into extreme horror, or does your work kind of fall more towards the quiet horror, or do you find yourself somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think I'm more quiet. The extreme stuff I'll leave to the people that do it well. But even Clive Barker, when I first read his stuff, I was pretty young, probably too young to read that kind of thing. But I had started with, of course, Stephen King. I think Stephen King is like the prerequisite for every horror writer or horror lover in the universe. Which is not a bad thing. He's great. And my first kind of foray into Stephen King was actually the Dark Tower series, which is more fantasy than anything. But then, I started to look for more, different, right? Because it's all just, these white dudes writing creepy stories, which is fine. Like, that's kind of the basis of everything. But there has to be more than just that one perspective. And so, Clive Barker's a white dude, but he's also a gay man. And so it adds this whole other level of, for me, reading his stuff, like, it's very, very sexual, very, like, coming of age, sort of finding out who you are in the most times the most grotesque way that you possibly can, which is cool. I thought it was great. And, he does a lot of painting and he does photography as well. And I just really, his stuff, like, resonated with me, and it still does. And I still look to him for inspiration to this day, because I just think he's the most creative person out there.
Clive Barker was gay?
Yeah.
He still is.
Well, well, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm in shock.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. You got me speechless. I didn't realize.
Does it change your perspective on him at all?
No, it just makes me kind of go, well, I should have had him on the show.
If you watch Hellraiser, it kind of becomes very clear that it's like, oh, okay, there's something a bit more going on than just, this lady who likes her husband's brother. There's something deeper going on there, and it's fun to watch and read his stuff and, like, look for all the little things underneath that you might not realize otherwise.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue, but I've never really read any of his stuff. I've, of course, seen stuff, but I've never read any of his stuff, so I've never realized, never thought about it. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, Nightbreed is also a super gay movie. Having watched it in the best way possible, it's a great movie, but it's like, yeah, this is a very gay movie. I love it.
Give me a whole new appreciation for horror and Clive Barker,
There you go. This is a learning podcast.
It certainly is. Stephen King, who's he?
Never heard of the guy.
No. If he actually gets a book published, I might ask him to come on the show. But, I like to see that. Well, they're going to have an actual book out, right?
Yeah.
What else are you going to talk about? So what do you hope people take away from your stories then? If you're not really looking to scare them and you're just writing what you think, but when you're complete, like this book, The Night Belongs to Us, someone goes out, buys it, takes it home and reads it. What is it you hope for them? Like, is it purely entertainment, nothing else, or is there something more to it?
Good question. I wish I was deep enough to have a deep answer for this.
Well, sometimes things happen organically, right? Because there's writers that'll sit there and plan out their story and have some meaning that they want the reader to get or connect with. But sometimes you just write the story, and then a lot of writers will say, "Oh, I didn't plan that, but this is what it means."
No, for sure. And I've definitely fallen into the former camp of, oh, I didn't really plan anything, but I hope you find something in it. But no, there's definitely, like I said before, a lot of strained relationship stuff in here. It's coming from my own experience. But hopefully some of the stories have a bit of a catharsis too with the relationships. They might not end positively all the time. For the most part, they do end negatively because that's just how I am hardwired. But, if somebody reads something and sees their own relationship with a parent or a sibling or a friend reflected in there and sees that, there is some sort of maybe grotesque hope in some way, then that would be pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, but I hope that it's hopeful for sure. And, the titular story, The Night Belongs to Us, is probably a good example of that too, because that's about a relationship between two women who are both in a way having a strained relationship with their own mothers. And then they both come to this realization at the end that, not spoiling anything, but, that they don't necessarily need their blood family. They can have their own chosen family, and that is enough for them. And so, that'd be a nice takeaway for someone too, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Why not?
talking about, you were talking earlier about, Stephen King, Clive Barker, getting into, from the 70s into the 80s, where in the 80s horror became huge. That's where I kind of fell into reading horror books but by the early 90s, horror kind of, the genre itself as a written form kind of imploded a little bit. What do you think about modern horror today? Do you think that there's a comeback, a resurgence of this type of fiction? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. So I worked in publishing for a bit too. A few years ago, I was the managing editor at Trepidatio Publishing, and I also worked with Journal Stone. They were essentially the same company. And so one thing that I really wanted to do as the managing editor was bring more, diverse voices to the forefront, and to help those who, haven't really had the opportunity to get their works out there, Right. And so when I started doing that, that was around the time when I was seeing more women, more people of color, starting to get into it and to find their own footing in, what was predominantly white and male before. And now I think we have so much, and it's wonderful, and we need even more, because there's only been one POV for such a long time. Me too. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and so I grew up watching and reading all of that same sort of horror. And especially for movies, because I'm also a screenwriter, but especially for movies, when you're younger and you're watching stuff that kind of very clearly was not made for you, it kind of makes you feel like you shouldn't be watching it, and makes you feel a bit awkward watching it. And so I've always gravitated more towards the female-led stories, because that's always what I wanted to see more of. And it's really heartening to see so many women now both writing more, directing more, screenwriting more, and just getting more of that female-led horror out there. I'm a big fan of that.
America went to hell when they decided to let a woman go to work.
Well, I'm Canadian, and so
no, I say that.
Great up here.
No, I said that. I say that. No, I'm a Canuck too, actually. Just so you know. But what I did was I interviewed a guy in Seattle that had been put away for murder back in the 50s, and he didn't do it, and he got out in, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. So I was spending time with him to write a story in a book. And when I met him, that's the first thing he said to me. He said, America's gone to hell, and the reason is they decided to let a woman go to work.
Are we sure he didn't do the murder? Are we sure?
No, but you see, that became kind of the point of the story. Because throughout the whole time I spent with him in a year, he was the biggest asshole you'll ever meet in your life. I'm not kidding. But the idea was, just because he's an asshole doesn't mean he could be put away for something like murder that he didn't do.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? True. And I think that's what became the point of the story. That's how I turned it into it. And, so anyway, I just...
We need an asshole jail to just put all the assholes.
Well, you see, I was thinking about that. We could have one of those. Put it in Florida, because then it'd save the traveling fees for most people. But
the entire population would be in. I mean, it's like
just shuffle the government into the.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but as a horror writer, in these modern times, I like to ask this question because it seems like there's a lot more awareness and sensitivity, and so people are becoming much more aware, much more sensitive and thinking about it. But when you're writing horror, are you conscious of the type of violence and or sex or dark things that you write on the paper?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Especially as a woman, I don't do sexual violence. I'm not into that. I'm not going to write about that, at least not in like graphic detail. I don't see the point, for me personally. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world too that, I specifically kind of grabbed from, going back to the title story, The Night Belongs to Us. In a way, it's about as well the missing and murdered Indigenous women genocide that's kind of been going on around these parts, both in Canada and in the U.S. And so I think that as long as you are aware of what you're writing about, if it is a super sensitive subject, if you go into it with a level of understanding and grace and tact, like as much as you can, then, I mean, I don't want to say it's okay, but we can't shy away from these things also, is the thing. We have to talk about these things. And reflecting back to the horror movies of the 80s and 90s, they were all reflective of society, right? In the 70s too. Everything in horror is reflective of what's going on at the time. So like, you know, Romero's Dead movies, they're all very reflective of, you know, what was happening in the 50s, what's happening in the 80s, you know, all that stuff. And I think if we approach it in a way that is compassionate and understanding, then I think that is good. It's a good sort of therapy for us to kind of work through our own feelings on it as well.
Yeah. I always wonder about that because some people are very aware and they're right on it, and some aren't. You know, and it's just it's kind of interesting to hear the different points of view.
For sure.
So, how are you adapting to social media, or are you, or do you like to be all over Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, dancing, and all that stuff?
I watch a lot of TikTok with my daughter. We watch a lot of cat videos on there. That's probably the extent of my TikTok usage. I try to do a social media presence, but I find it to be such a dumpster fire of a place all over, you know. And it's like it's good for promo and stuff too, and it's good to, you know, communicate with fellow horror writers and fans and all that. But I feel like the bad outweighs the good a lot of the times, just because it's the spread of misinformation, all the hatefulness that goes on in there. It's more exhausting to be on it than anything, and I am not that big of a fan.
No, it's like a big bar fight.
Exactly. You can't look away.
You can watch it for a while, and you can get into it if you want, or it's better to stay out of it, you know.
Exactly.
You know, it's kind of crazy. So how do you want people to find you? Do you like readers to find you? Do you have a website? Do you have any place that you, sort of set up for readers?
For sure, yeah. I have my website. It's jesslandry.com. I sometimes remember to update it, so there's that. And I do, like, as far as social media goes, I'm probably on Facebook the most, just spying on people, honestly. But all my handles across all the social platforms are the same. I'm at Jess Landry 28. So if anybody wants to connect, I'm mostly on Facebook, trying to do Instagram a bit more. And then Titter, oh my God.
Titter.
What am I thinking
I
of?
haven't been on that one.
Anyway, Twitter, I'm trying to just get rid of completely because, that's the axis of trash right now, I find.
It's kind of one of those things. It's there. But, you know, that's Twitter, not Titter. I haven't been on Titter.
Don't find me on Titter. I don't know what's going on there.
No. Dave's on there all the time. He spends the whole time on Titter.
He's on there right now, actually.
He can't get off Titter. He's stuck. He's stuck on that. He's on the nipple ride. Yeah, it's terrible. Awful. So when you were writing through the pandemic, do you think it affected you? Were you one of those writers that could write through all the weirdness, or does it sort of shut you down?
Yeah, no, it was great. I love being home. It was like, I don't have to go anywhere, and I can keep my sweatpants on. Perfect.
Yeah, but the tension, every time you do turn on the news or you flip it through your Twitter looking at cats, all of a sudden there's like some guy in the Costco yelling at the woman because she's telling him to wear a mask, and like, you know what I mean? Like all the tension going on outside of the house. I mean, do you think that seeps into your writing or affects you, or can you just blow right through it?
No, it for sure seeps in. I think it affected everyone in some way. That's for sure. For us, it got to the point where we were watching the news almost too much, and then we just had to like stop because, at least for my husband anyway, he has anxiety issues, and it was just feeding into him in a very bad way. So it was like, we can't watch this every day. We can't look at these numbers going up. It's like, it's too much. And then being home all day for him and I, excuse me, and our daughter as well. It was like, oh God, we need daycare. We need stuff. Like, we need something. We can't all just be in our house together. But yeah, it's, I haven't been in Costco actually since before the pandemic, because I just refuse now, because it was bad before, and now it's just hell on earth, basically.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Walmart with a membership,
Yeah, that's crazy. Was that Walmart Plus or whatever? Like, who do they think they are?
Yeah, I don't waste my time on any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Too many people too, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, yeah. We just came back from a trip. We went to London and Paris, and we wwe in Paris during the marathon because my brother-in-law ran it, of all things, which is like good for him, but why run a marathon? But anyway, when we had to take the subway, the metro, while we were there, and it was just jam-packed. And I was like, oh no, I'm coming back with something. And lo and behold, here I am on the tail end of something. I don't know, not COVID, but a nasty cold anyway.
Yeah. The train's it's a good system, but I got sick every time I was on it in London or England, anywhere. I always got sick. People sneeze and everything, and it's just so crammed, and it's
too much.
Yeah.
And I come from a city where we don't even have the subway. Like, we just have buses, and it's like, no, I think I'll just walk everywhere when I can, when it's not, minus 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's Canada.
Yeah, it's Canada.
Minus 40, wear your shorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like New England.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're two in the same. There you go.
There you go. Well, okay. So now we'll wrap this up, and we'll have everything up on our website. Of course, like I said, your website and everything. And of course, the book is called The Night Belongs to Us. And our guest is the author of that book, Jess Landry. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys, for having me. This was a good chat. I'm sorry about Titter. Or maybe I'm not. I don't know. Time will tell.
Thanks, Jess.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night. This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.